we find out pretty quickly why you play. And I think that's a really big question that I like to try to find out during the recruiting process. If you want to be an architect, then college golf's going to be pretty tough because there are different majors like nursing and architecture, like have these studio hours, 12-hour shifts. I mean, those are pretty tough to do and play high level D1 golf. Zara is someone that struck me was just the dedication and the passion to get better. You know, I actually think we haven't even come close to seeing her best, which is exciting. Always put your graduation year, because that gives me as a coach an idea of when am I allowed to contact you. Oh, it's such a hot topic. You know, there's the opportunity as a student athlete, a collegiate student athlete, to get paid from name, image, and likeness. And so that is very real. If it's someone's playing a 5,000 yard golf course and they're shooting 77, I mean, that tells me a lot. That tells me that they probably don't hit it very far, or their short game's not very good, because the 5,000 yard golf course is very short. And when I hear someone says, well, my coach has never been on the golf course with me, I'm like, what? It's shocking to me. If you're only getting instruction on a flat surface in a controlled environment, then you're not learning how to play the game.
Welcome to Raising an Athlete, where we bring the best sporting insights for junior athletes and sports parents. Before I introduce our very distinguished guest for the day, I want to share a bit of a context about today's conversation. The college sports ecosystem in the United States is one of the most advanced and structured in the world. In India too, the interest in NCAA and college sports is growing faster than ever. This is, of course, true for golf, where the prospect of world-class coaching, competition, and education is becoming a real aspiration for young athletes. And recently, that curiosity hit home with our very own Zara Anand's selection for the Auburn University's Women Golf Program, a celebratory moment for Indian junior golf and a powerful example of what is possible for our young golfers today. With this context, I'm very excited to welcome a very distinguished guest. We're joined by one of the most respected figures in collegiate golf, Coach Melissa Luellen, head coach at Auburn University's Women's Golf Program. A former NCAA individual champion and an LPGA Tour winner, Melissa has spent over 2 decades shaping the landscape of women's college golf. She comes from a truly distinguished lineage. Her mother, Gil McNamara, was a Hall of Fame coach at Tulsa with 4 national championships to her name. Today's conversation is specifically aimed at athletes, parents, families who are really trying to understand the world of college golf or planning for a pathway in collegiate golf. And I'm really excited, and Coach Melissa's insights are going to be invaluable for all of us. Coach, welcome, and thank you so much for making time for today's conversation.
Thank you, Amita. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So, Coach, since our show is focused on young athletes and sport parents, I'd love to go back to your early years. What was your early childhood like? How did golf enter your life? And what role did your parents play in shaping your journey? I mean, you grew up in a very accomplished background. You know, you had a Hall of Fame coach as your parent. What was it like for you?
Well, when I was young, I didn't realize that my mom was this awesome coach. She started coaching when I was about 11 years old. So both my parents were really good golfers. My mom was a bit better than my father, not by much. And so that was something that they had in common, that they would play together a lot. And then my older sister, Kathy, and I think the golf course was our babysitter, because it was a safe place that our parents literally could just drop us off and we'd spend the entire day. We'd swim and play tennis and play golf, and, you know, honestly, quite a very fortunate upbringing to be able to do that. And probably the thing that got me hooked on golf was the golf cart. I loved to act like I was driving the golf cart when I was little, and then to drive the golf cart. I mean, they're like, Melissa, you want to go to the course? Yeah, can I drive? And sit on my dad's lap and steer the steering wheel. I mean, that was the thing that kind of hooked me. And then, while everybody else was playing, then my parents had a little short golf club for me, and they're like, go ahead and hit it. And so that's how it started. And I can't believe I've made a complete career out of golf. I've been very, very fortunate.
I mean, that's incredible, and also very interesting how, the journey was completely organic, that it flowed for you like that. And what you said about the golf cart reminds me of what I hear many times the athletes and coaches here speak about the food to say that one of the highlights for sometimes kids who are learning is what's available in a cafe or what am I going to eat after my round. So sometimes there are these organic things which actually play such a role in your connection to that space. You've had a phenomenal career with NCAA yourself. You've had an individual title and 22 top 10 finishes. What do you remember most vividly from those years?
Gosh, it would have to be my senior year, and our team won. We'd had a tough junior year for me. The year before was pretty tough. We didn't make it to the national championship. We were a really good team, just had some different things happen, I guess. And then my senior year, we had two freshmen come in that were very talented, a little bit raw, but very talented. We were playing the national championship in Las Cruces de Mexico, and had prepared well, and imagined that I had, every putt I hit in practice or every shot I hit in practice was imagining that was for the national championship. And so some of that imagery, just as a kid, I didn't even know what I was doing, but just play acting that I was going to win. And that week my putter was hot, and I played awesome golf, and our team played great, and we won the national championship. So to have, walking up the 18th hole and have my mom and dad walking hand in hand, like it was just a moment I'll never forget. And to have my team around me at the end, and the excitement and the cheers and the support was just, just a memory that I think now as a coach, I want my players to have memories like that. And they're very special, and they never leave you.
That's fantastic. One of the things I also want to ask is that from the time that you played in terms of collegiate golf, what has changed? What are some of the big changes that you've seen from that time to what you see when you're coaching now?
It's a lot of change. Well, for one thing, I've recognized that in my career, in my lifetime, I never thought we would see an amateur women's event played at Augusta National. That has had a huge impact on the game for young girls. That's, a dream of that's where I want to be. Like, it's just incredible. And then from the collegiate standpoint, we now have 9 full scholarships instead of 6. That's been a big change. There's the opportunities and the growth of the game. I think the NCAA has done a great job by putting the national championship on television on the Golf Channel. And that's grown the game. Opportunities and things that I did not have access to when I was in college. But, I think coaches before me, like my mom, fought for things and really had to fight. But we're seeing the fruits of their labor happening now. And the game it's in a great spot, and it's up to us to keep it in a great spot and keep it moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I feel like women's sport in general globally, and we've seen that in India, has been on the rise. I mean, there's just so much positive that's happened in the space of women's golf also. When you shifted from collegiate golf to now playing at the LPGA, and you've been a winner on the tour yourself, what was the shift again? What shaped your understanding of what does it take to be an elite player?
Well, I think that, experience is always a great teacher. And when you go out there, it's like moving to the next level, like moving from junior golf to collegiate golf to professional golf. One thing about the difference between collegiate and professional is that you no longer have a coach taking care of all of your travel and all of your transportation needs and all of your meals. And those things are just like, you just show up. And then when you're a professional, I mean, you really are doing everything yourself. You are your own CEO. You're managing how you're going to get from one place to another. I mean, everyone thinks that, you have a manager and they're all going to do it for you, but the majority of players do not. And, booking your own travel and figuring out how to get from point A to point B is a bit of a challenge. And then also just, now you have this idea of playing for money, and something that, unless you play for a $2 Nassau with the people at the club, I mean, it's a whole different ball game. But at the end of the day, you have to remember it's still a game, and it's a hard game, and it's going to be full of storms and challenges, and you have to be a great problem solver. And I think that as a young pro, I got a little bit overwhelmed with every shot meant I'm playing for money and how much I'm going to make, and, getting focused on just making the cut. because if I make the cut, then I make a paycheck. And obviously, completely wrong way to go into it. I had my I would say most of the time I had a tough time, but then I had 2 wins. And so when you look back at it, like there's a lot of players that played on the LPGA that never had a win. And I was fortunate enough to have 2. And, again, those are some special memories I take with me. But the whole journey was quite difficult. You have to have a lot of belief in this game. And the things that brought me to a certain level to be able to play professional golf, I needed to make sure I kept those things sharp. And I started chasing distance and let my short game kind of let me down a bit because I wasn't spending as much time on it. So you really have to know who you are as a player and what got you there. And you can have people tell you this, and the only, wisdom is gained and earned. And if you're smart as a young player, you'll listen to people that are older, but there is no substitute for actually experiencing it yourself. And so I heard all the things like, go with what brought you there and make sure you stay sharp on those things. And I didn't. And so from my experience, I say doing what you do well. And then obviously spend the time on the things where you're losing shots or you can get better, but don't get obsessed with it. So that was a hard lesson for me, but hopefully a lesson as a coach that I can teach my student athletes.
It's interesting you said that you were focusing on hitting at that time. If I read correctly, I found you mentioned that putting or the short game is your forte or is your focus area now. So clearly, I think you also took your learnings as a coach or areas that you developed as a coach. And also what you said about that as a player, you really had to manage everything for yourself. But it's about looking for your own needs as an individual. And now we shift about your journey as a coach, which is more towards other people. I think you've spoken about the fact that you hadn't thought about being a coach, but when you tried, you really loved it. And often enough, we say that the skills required to be a player and a coach are like very different skills. So it would be interesting to know from your point of view, what was the shift or what are the different skills for both and really your coaching philosophy?
Well, being the daughter of a Hall of Fame coach coming in, the story is a little bit interesting how I got into coaching. With my mom, coached for 26 years. And ironically, I'm on my 26th year of coaching right now. And that first year, I was going back to Monday qualifyings and year 11 on the LPGA, and I'm a winner on the tour, and now I'm going back to Monday qualifying. Like, what am I doing? And I just decided at that point that the playing was not going to be for me anymore. And I completely thought that I would maybe I have a degree in marketing, that I would go into maybe pharmaceutical sales, something like that I could see myself doing. And my mom was the one that she said, I think you'd be a great coach. And honestly, being away from the college golf for 13, 14 years, I really didn't know anything about college coaching. And I was away from it for so long. And then all of a sudden, basically, my mom retired and I got hired by the same university, University of Tulsa, as the head coach. So A, I've been away from college golf for 13 years. B, I've never been an assistant coach. And C, I'm following my mother's program, who's, top 3 ranked program in the country. And you think, wow, that's a pretty neat way to get into it. Well, I did not have a philosophy. I did not have any experience. I did not know what I was doing. When I was playing college golf, it was about the team. When I was playing professional golf, it was about me and my game. And now it took me about 48 hours to realize this is no longer about me and my golf. And to have that shift in mentality, I made a ton of mistakes early on and had to really learn on the go, and by not having any coaching experience at all. So I'll see my first team and apologize to them often, because I really, here they have this great coach with a ton of experience, and then this totally green coach who's supposed to know what she's doing. And I really didn't. And so I think from that point on, because I came into coaching quite late, I was 34 years old when I started coaching. And I feel like I've been on this quest for the last 26 years to figure out how to do it and how to do it right. And so I think that philosophically, I feel like I'm always learning and that I don't know it all. My players teach me more than anything. But what I have learned is that if we just surround them in a really good atmosphere and environment, and it allows that true inner person to come out, and that we can support them and know that my whole coaching staff, we're supporting them in achieving their goals and dreams. And everyone needs to go about it a little bit different way. And just because they're different personalities, different skill sets, different physical abilities, we have to treat them as individuals and then bring them together as a team.
You organically, grew and learned on that journey. Are there now more structured pathways available for coaches, for athletes who are looking at transitioning into coaches? How has that shifted over years?
It's, you would think it would be more structured. Here's the pathway that normally happens. A girl plays collegiate golf and maybe wants to go to graduate school and wants to try coaching. So in the States, if you become a graduate assistant, then your tuition is paid for. So for your studies. And so it gives someone an opportunity to have some experience in coaching, kind of dip their toe in to see if this is something that they like, being on the other side of it. And then if a lot of it is who you know and connections, and get hired on as an assistant coach somewhere. And that's kind of how the journey starts. I can't say there's any kind of a certification in the U.S. to be a college golf coach. I think there's different certifications like Tyler's Performance Institute, different seminars, different things that you can do, but there's nothing that gives you accreditation to be a coach, which is actually kind of shocking.
I mean, one would imagine that the certain personal skills, those are behavioral, that differs from a person to person, and that learning will happen no matter, irrespective of the accreditation, over a period of time. But I think some amount of formal skills, it does help an athlete to grow into a coach. I think a lot of parents who will be watching this, and even the athletes, will be very curious to know about the recruitment. So we're going to talk about recruitment at college level, and then come back also to developing golf in junior years, because that's where many of these kids are going to be currently. So I think I'll begin by asking about Zara. Now, she seems to be the first Indian to join Auburn's women golf team. What stood out about Zara as a player and as a person during the recruitment process for you?
So Zara is someone that struck me was just the dedication and the passion to get better. I actually think we haven't even come close to seeing her best, which is exciting. Someone I think when you describe a student athlete that a coach would like, let's not even put a name to it. Someone that's dedicated, someone that's not afraid of hard work, someone that's self-motivated, someone that's a good student, a pleasant person, someone that you enjoy being around, someone that has grit and fight, someone that's willing to go above and beyond. Like, those are descriptives that, any coach would say, I would love to have that athlete on my team. And I feel like Zara fits all of those descriptions. Just a delightful girl, delightful family, so supportive and positive and appreciative. I think you have to really appreciate all the things that the doors that golf can open. And so I never feel like Zara is going to take anything for granted. I think she understands what an opportunity this is, and she's doing and going to do everything in her power to make Auburn proud. And she's already done that. She doesn't have to, because who she is, she doesn't have to change anything. She just needs to keep being who she is. And so the term diamond in the rough, someone that she was not, I wouldn't say she was a high profile athlete. We just kind of kept watching her, and, just consistency. Like, when you're building a team, you'll have players that can really go low, but they can also shoot high. They're just a little bit streaky. And then you have the players that are really consistent. They're going to give you solid numbers and scores on quite a consistent basis. And so when I'm recruiting, I'm probably looking at both of those spectrums. And I see Zara as kind of right in the middle, like someone that's going to give a lot of consistent scores. And then as she continues to grow and improve and get stronger, as she is now, like, she's starting to see that she can go low and, change that belief system and that profile a little bit.
Lovely. I think it was very exciting for our young girls to watch. She recently won the amateur title at the Women's Open, and it was such an exciting moment for all the young junior golfers to, watch her play like that. So very, very excited about that, and loved what you said about, the personal values that an athlete brings, which is so very important. And also, I think the importance of playing together as a team, because I think that is a one big shift golf that happens when you come in collegiate golf, because it's no longer a solo performance. I mean, from your point of view, you're looking at how they gel together as a unit, and for them also to kind of see themselves as a part of something which is larger than them.
It's so fun to play for a team. And it is when those days that we all have, you don't feel like getting up and going to 6:30 a.m. workouts or, 4 hours of practice. And, but when you have your teammates that you care about and love, that helps pull you out of bed sometimes too. So the team I have right now they're super talented and they're so fun. And, there's a lot of laughter and a lot of enjoyment. And, it's really fun for me as a coach to watch and know that these girls are going to be friends for life.
Fantastic. Just looking specifically at the pathway that's available in US, now you have different levels of college golf, and this I'm sharing a little bit for the benefit of the audience who may not know the Division 1 programs that are highly competitive, and then the Division 2 programs that balance academics alongside athletics, and then the Division 3 programs that are academically focused with limited athletics scholarships. Is that right? My understanding on the three? Okay. So for parents and young golfers who are really trying to understand this landscape, how should they evaluate which type of program is the right fit for them?
That's the $1 million question. Well, I think it starts out with what's the young lady's goals? Do you want to play college? Do you want to play golf after college? I think that should be the first question. And then does your talent, ability, and scores match that potential? There are many programs out there that kind of cater to the girl that I just love golf and want to play college golf, but I really don't have any aspirations to play pro golf. That's fine. There are plenty of programs for that young lady. I mean, I've had a number of players that played great golf and just knew that life on the road, being a tour player, was not going to be for them. They tried it, but they really didn't like it. I can tell the ones that are going to like it and the ones that aren't. So I think that's the number one question. Like, what do you want to do with golf? And then such an opportunity for great academics. There's like the Ivy League schools, they're a bit unique, where like Harvard and Yale and Boston College and those places, they don't give athletic scholarships, but they come up with these academic packages that are almost like a full scholarship. So we're seeing some kids that are very, very talented going to the Ivy League schools. Most of them are not playing beyond college because the studies just kind of overtake the time. So, you have to, again, it's a balance. If you are so talented that, you really think that you can play beyond college, then I think it's important to choose a school where the coach understands what your goals are, and that academically they understand the goals. You can get a great education and play great golf at the same time. I think that the players at most Division I programs ranked in the top 20 are absolutely showing that. Choosing a major is another thing to, if you want to be an architect, then college golf's going to be pretty tough, because there are different majors like nursing and architecture, like have these studio hours that, or, nursing rotations or 12-hour shifts. I mean, those are pretty tough to do and play high level D1 golf. And so if you're going to be, if you really want to be an architect, then you better just be an architect, or find a school that you can be an architect, but understand that, and the coach understands that the workload is just not going to be as much from a student athlete standpoint. And so there's a lot of different mixes of programs out there for young girls that are interested in different things. And so, I can only speak from my chair that we are highly competitive. We're trying to recruit the best players in the world. We're trying to win a national championship, SEC championships, individual titles. I mean, we are all about playing great golf and also about graduating our student athletes. I mean, our team had, I don't know if our grade point system reflects on the understanding, but we're on a 4.0 system, and our team had a 3.8 GPA last year. So, golfers miss more school than any other athlete because we're gone 5 days at a time. And we play 4 or 5 tournaments each semester. And so it's a lot of school missed, and it's very stressful. You have to really want to do it, because it is very stressful.
Of course, it's not easy, because as young people, I mean, we are all work in progress as human beings, but especially as young people, you're still understanding what your motivations are. What do you really want from life? And probably it's not easy. How much do you see in this decision making? How much of this is the young people themselves, or is it driven by their parents?
I think as a young golfer, I think you have to have the support of your family. We find out pretty quickly why you play. And I think that's a really big question that I like to try to find out during the recruiting process. And it's because I love the challenge of it. I love the game. I feel like I'm never going to perfect it, but I want to pursue perfection. Things like that like really drive kids to get better and spend all that time practicing. When you have a parent that's making you go, it's the balance. Like we find out in college how passionate the young lady is, because like I said, if you want to be great, you've got to be really internally motivated. And if you're being motivated for extrinsic reasons like parents or other it shows up in college. And because there's a lot of opportunity for other things in college, it's just such a time for growth. And so I've had a couple players over the years that we realized that they were playing because their parents were making them play, or they didn't want to disappoint their parents because their parents had given so much money and time and investment to help them, in their golf. And it's not because they're doing anything wrong. It's just they learn to come to find out that golf just isn't my number one passion. There's other things I want to do. And sometimes you don't really know until you get to college. And so, but that is something that we look for, is like, where does the passion come from? And you can have parents that are very passionate and supportive. And then you can also have some parents that are a bit overbearing.
Right. So I think it is about honest conversations between parents and kids, which I mean, as a parent, I can say is also not always easy, because you're trying to balance a lot of imperatives. As a parent, you're always trying to protect safety of your kids, how you think what would serve their interests best versus, and we've been kids ourselves, so we know how it looks on the other side, where, we want to please them, we want them to be happy, but we also have our own aspirations of what we want from life. So
there's a great book that's from Vision 54, Lynn Marriott and Pia Nielsen. And there's a book that's called Golf Parent. It's for golf parents specifically. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it is a great guide, a simple guide. And I actually use it in coaching. It's just really how to ask questions rather than telling after a round. As a golf parent, you can just ask, how was it out there for you? The last question I want to ask is, what did you shoot? What do you think you could do? What's one thing you can do better tomorrow? It's really a great pathway of learning how to ask questions, so you're not doing the talking for your child, that they actually are learning to figure out where they need to spend their time, or what emotions got in the way, or why did they have all those emotions, so a lot of things that we see. But I think it's a book just for golf parents, and it's really great.
Sounds like Zen golf.
a little bit.
Okay, lovely. If you could share a little about the recruitment process that typically works at Auburn, that would be very, very useful as well.
I think it's important to do the research first. So look at the different programs that you might be interested in. And this starts probably, I would say grade 9 is when you should really starting to reach out to different programs. So currently we've just completed recruiting for the 2027 class. And I started getting emails from the 2027 class at least 2 years ago. 2 to 3 years ago. And those emails are, I think, the ones that are consistent, but not persistent. Consistent follow-up is to like an introduction. The resume should have a photo. Maybe most everything's on email now. So some swing video, very short swing video of kind of a synopsis of their game, from couple of irons to some putting and chipping and bunker shots. Doesn't have to be long. It can really be 1 minute or less, and just clips, because we get a ton of emails that we're going through, and the ones that are a little bit more personalized to Auburn, knowing what our team's done. Congratulations on your win at the Tar Heel Classic. You guys are, I've seen that you moved up in the rankings. I'm doing the same thing. These are things that I'm doing with my golf. So make it a little bit more personal for that introductory letter. Always, always, always put your graduation year, because that gives me as a coach an idea of when am I allowed to contact you, or what, or do I just need to, save this email in a file so when I get to the 2029 class, I know that I'm not going to reach out and create a violation for myself with the NCAA. So always, every single one, even if you've emailed the coach 10 times, always include your graduation year. A list of tournaments that you've played in with the length of the golf course in yards, scores, place finish. If it's someone's playing a 5,000 yard golf course and they're shooting 77, I mean, that tells me a lot. That tells me that they probably don't hit it very far, or their short game's not very good, because the 5,000 yard golf course is very short. And so I think a progression of maybe a resume from like 2 or 3 years kind of shows progression, shows me hard work, shows me improvement, shows that I love to play tournaments. So listing of future tournaments coming up, so that if it's a prospect that has caught my eye, then I'm going to try to follow them in those tournaments. And then I think social medias and Instagram has actually become a really good place for me as a coach to kind of check on a player. Maybe I don't know a player, but I can look at the Instagram account, and I can, if it's, many of them are tailored towards their golf, where they're posting their swing videos, they're posting them holding a trophy, they're posting, their scores that they shot, what they're proud of. I mean, just makes it a little bit more personal. I think another good way to do it is to, in that resume, have a link to a personal website, because that's something that a player can update pretty easily. And then you can just keep sending the link of the website and say, hey, this is an update. Please check out my website. And then, it's kind of endless what you can do in that, and be creative and make it more personalized. I don't know if every coach enjoys that. I know that I do. If there's a personal website, I almost 99% of the time click on it.
Interesting. So I think that's a lot of valuable insights for those who are actually specifically looking at kind of evaluating the options. I also wanted to ask, in terms of Auburn's own philosophy for recruitment when it comes to international players, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that what we're looking for are players that are really going to have an impact on our program, that are very serious about their game and their academics. I'd say most of the time they're part of their national team, just because the national team enables them to be playing at, high competitive tournaments, getting a lot of great experience. So all of my international girls are on their national teams. And so to me, that's some of the best of the best. And so that's one way that I narrow it down. There are, like, one of the tournaments that we love going to, we go to 2 every year overseas. That's the European Girls Team Championship and the British Girls. And so that one in particular is because you don't have to be part of a team. There many countries, only a handful of girls get selected for their teams, but there's still good talent coming up. And so there's a lot of coaches that recruit at those tournaments, so they can see the kids coming up, and maybe the kids that aren't on their national teams, or gives them an opportunity to get seen by college coaches.
Right. And you said grade 9, because I wanted to ask, at what age should parents and athletes start looking out? Did you say grade 9 is when they should begin?
I mean, that seems to settle well with me, because then I can start to track them and see their names and kind of see how they progress over the next 2 years, because we can't make contact with them until June 15th after the junior year. And so if that's the first time that I hear about them, that's probably a little bit late, because by the time June 15th comes around, I've already made my list of the kids that I want to talk to that day. And that those are my top recruits. And so the whole year previous, I'm really evaluating, like right now, I'm evaluating the class of 2028, because next thing I know, June 15th is going to be coming around, and I'm going to be making phone calls. And so if you wait until your junior year, I think it's a little bit too late. Not to say that you can't find a college, because I'd say that, the top programs are looking for, like, ready to get it done early. We have great things to offer to great students. They want to match up to the top programs. And so lots of times those top schools are making their commitments by October of their junior year. But
this is useful.
Yeah, so but not to get discouraged, because there's still plenty of girls and plenty of spots available that, even into the senior year, girls continue to develop and get better, and then spots open up, or there's another school. Just taking the opportunity to get in college in the US. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others, but that's okay. It's just, I always say, let your clubs do the talking. If your scores are improving and their scores are good and the scores are low, then, I also see a player who's developing a little bit later than some of the others. Like, girls physically mature at age 16. So we kind of know, like, height wise, that's about it. Now, a player can get more proficient in their skills. They can start putting and chipping and wedging it better, which means better scores. They can get stronger, but sometimes that happens a little bit later. And so I've seen many times girls just getting into a program in the U.S. and then, they kill it their freshman year because they kind of got overlooked by the top schools, but then they come in, they get an opportunity to get their foot in the door, and then there's opportunity to transfer. The transfer portal is one thing. That's the opportunity to transfer from one school to another. You don't have to sit out for a year like you used to. It's not really the way that I would want to plan my recruiting. If I'm a student athlete, I'm going to pick the school I really want to go to. That's where I really want to be. And if it's not your first pick, then find good things about it. And if it's, don't really know the school and you don't know a lot about it, but it's an opportunity to get a full scholarship, then go try it. I mean, go grow for at least a year. And, being far from home and having to survive on your own, it's quite scary, but it's also a phenomenal way to grow up. And it's hard and it's challenging, but golf is hard. And so when you face hard things and get through it, it just shapes you as a person.
That's true. And one of the things I also wanted to ask you was, what are the biggest adjustments that international players typically face when they arrive in the US college system?
Well, I think for some countries, the language barrier, like I have a Spaniard on my team right now, and her English was pretty good, but having to think in English all the time was exhausting. Reading, schoolwork, listening to professors, not speaking your native language very much at all during the day. And then just, she was just exhausted. I think just the lifestyle lingo, sometimes maybe not getting some of the jokes because the lingo is a little bit different. The food can really be a challenge for some players. For the US, we put a bunch of preservatives and additives in our food. It's not very healthy. And a lot of girls, they gain weight I've seen like complexion changes just from having different foods. And so just learning how you can eat healthy and clean in the US. You just have to have a little bit of desire to do it. Everything is so convenient here that it's very easy to get in bad habits. So I think just having to do the laundry and keeping up with things, different cultures. Every U.S. girl shaves their legs and armpits, and not every country in the world does that. And so just understanding like that's going to be something that's different about somebody. That are you going to start shaving your legs? Or, just different little things like that from a cultural standpoint.
And I think it still would demand from a young person more clarity and reflection on who they are and who they want to be. But I suppose it also depends on the environment itself and how, the peer group that you find or the support that you find that helps you find your roots.
Exactly.
Over there.
It's, I think no matter where you go in the world, there's great people and kind people, and you want to surround yourself with like-minded people. And I think that's part of the recruiting process. When you maybe do official visits to schools, you're really looking at the total environment, and these are the people I'm going to be around every day. Do I like their energy? Do I like how they're talking? Things like that.
Just one specific question around scholarships now. How do the scholarships actually work in terms of full or partial, and what should families realistically expect, when they're applying?
So the NCAA had a lawsuit called the House Settlement that was finalized last year. So that's what allowed us to expand. At Auburn, we expanded up to 9 scholarships because there are right now roster limits. And it used to be Like, I could choose to bring someone on the squad. I was not going to offer them a scholarship, but they could come on our squad and they could practice and work out and try to get, work to get better. And unfortunately for us, that's just not really going to happen anymore because we have a limit as to how many people we can have on our team. And that limit is 9. And our school's given us the maximum number of scholarships to meet that roster limit. Not every school has 9 scholarships. And so that's an important question to ask when you are in the recruiting process is how many scholarships do you have for the 2028 class? How many spots do you have for the 2028 class? So those are 2 different questions. A spot is a spot and a scholarship is a scholarship. So they're 2 separate questions. And so the scholarship, if awarded, at least for us, a full scholarship covers tuition, books, fees, room, and board, food. And so the family's responsible for flights back and forth, maybe at Christmas time and coming back to school in August. So that's 2 flights a year. So you have to calculate those costs in. A scholarship does not cover transportation. So how far is the golf course? How are you going to get there? Do you need to have a car? Can you rely on teammates to get you there? Does the coach drive some places drive a van or a bus to the golf courses. So that's a question to ask. That's another expense. And I think someone that's really dedicated and wants to come to practice early and leave practice late, I think having a car is a real positive. So that's not covered in a scholarship. But, coaches, it's called an equivalency sport. So there's no longer, it used to be head count sports. And then there's equivalency sports. So head count was that the kid was like in tennis, was guaranteed a full scholarship. Well, golf has always been an equivalency sport, meaning that the coach can start to split up those scholarships. So I used to have 6 scholarships and I'd split them up to have about 9 or 10 on my team. And so with the new environment, every sport is an equivalency sport. So a coach can offer maybe tuition only. Well, that's the biggest ticket item for an out-of-state or an international student. And so that's a big chunk of money. So you have to determine, like, if that's what the offer is, can you afford to cover room and board on your own and all the travel and all those other things. So even at a full scholarship, it's not free. It still is going to cost the family money to provide different things, clothing and being able to go out to eat. Because that's a big pastime in the U.S. is going out to eat. So it's, but to have the opportunity, if someone gets the opportunity of a full scholarship, it's really quite something.
Yeah. That's true. If you can also share what you find are the biggest misconceptions about college golf that you find yourself correcting.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions that there are many unused scholarships each year, which in women's golf, I do not know where that happens. That's something that's been circulating around, and I honestly don't know where that is. And now with roster limits, it's even, I feel like every program is probably full or at capacity. So they're only looking for a couple of players each year. I mean, think about that. Right. There's thousands of kids that play golf, and there's maybe 350 Division I programs for women's golf. And each coach is only looking for 1 or 2. You have to be really good to have that opportunity. And so the odds maybe are not in your favor, but if your scores are good, then it increases your odds tremendously.
No, thanks for clarifying that. I think that's a very important one this is, and I've definitely heard what you said. That's great to hear that this is actually highly competitive. And people who are pursuing need to be mindful of that. Just 1 or 2 questions on college golf, and then I just want to take your view on developing juniors as well. So you spoke about social media profiles, and that becomes a reference point as a coach. Now, parents are also starting like the social media branding very early for their kids. There almost seems there's like a pressure to turn their juniors into a brand, managing Instagram and creating tailored content, showcasing their achievements. So while you mentioned that, like as a coach, that's something you look at, but I still wanted to have, what do you think about it? Does it distract them from the purpose? At least I have seen a little bit of that in India, where we seem to get so taken in by the publicity or the following, where I feel like the sport seems to take a backseat.
Oh, such a hot topic. There's the the opportunity as a student athlete, a collegiate student athlete, to get paid from name, image, and likeness. And so that is very real. And so I think that, the social media following, how many followers you have, is something that companies take into account if they're going to, have a marketing deal with a student athlete.
Yeah.
I still think that the numbers, like, let your clubs do the talking and the rest kind of takes care of itself. When I said having a presence on Instagram, from my purposes, it's more about being able to follow their progress. It's not about how elaborate their branding is. And, it's most of these profiles are driven more by the student athlete rather than the parents. And so when the idea of building a brand, I mean, things are changing. We can't stop that. You're going to continue to see it. And maybe that's just the world we're moving into. I'm a little bit old fashioned that way, but I have to change with the times as well. So I don't think poorly of anybody that's trying to brand themselves as a junior golfer, and a way, like I said, I just look at it as a way for me to try to see their progress, maybe even see some of their personality, because I can certainly see a little bit more of their personality through an Instagram post than I can on a piece of paper. And so, yeah, I mean, there's kids in the US that I follow that are 10 years old. They are really good, and I follow them. And some of them have shown up at a college golf tournament. I'm like, oh, there's that girl on Instagram. I mean, I'm fall prey to it as well, but it does work. But I think that the beauty of golf is that you don't have your phone for at least 4 hours, and it gives kids, everyone, a break from being connected to the phone, because we all know they're very habit forming, and all the different things that give you the hits and the follows and everyone living their best life. And we know it's not completely accurate. And so, but I think that it is part of our environment, and it's not going away. So I think there's, just like anything in life, there's a balance. It's like when you're talking to your daughter, like, does your daughter have an Instagram profile?
No, and that's what I wanted to say, that and these are not easy answers for any of us, even as parents, because I can say that as a parent, I'm more conservative in the sense that, it's not just about she having a presence. The other level is, which a lot of our peer group may have, is where the parents have created a presence which they are curating and managing for the child. So I think I have to think harder as a parent about it. But at this point of time, my child doesn't have a presence.
I think it's when, those conversations go along, it's like, all right, what's the purpose of this? Why are, and I think it's like when I'm recruiting, I can tell if a parent's written a letter or if I'm corresponding with the parent rather than the young lady. And so, I would prefer to be corresponding the majority of the time with the young lady, because that's who I'm going to be spending the majority of my time with. I love developing. What's that?
I was saying there must be a third stakeholder coming in now with AI. There is the parent, the young lady, and AI.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the conversation.
I mean, I use AI sometimes, for some letters as well, because it does help polish it up a bit. But, I think that, we're really trying to develop the relationship with the person. And, I'm very selective as who I bring into my family, and I want to get to know that person. And then, of course, I want to, develop relationships with the parents also. But I'm the ones that seem to have an edge are the ones that really want to do it themselves. And the parents have given them the tools to do things by themselves. So there's support, there's boundaries, but it's also teaching, like, if a kid makes a bad decision and makes double bogey, parents can't fix that. The young lady has to figure out how to not do that again, how to progress, how to handle a tough time, how to problem solve. And so if a parent's always doing it for them, they're not getting the skills necessary to kind of deal with things and when things get hard.
No, I think that's a very important point, because anyways, we parents on our journey, I think the real goal is to get the young ones independent, to be able to make their own decisions, good or bad, to learn, to see them fail, which is often the hard part, but we got to hold on to our instincts. This I did want to speak about that. You spoke about NIL, which is the name, image, likeness. If you can speak a little, the audience here may not be very familiar, but that's a big shift that's happened in collegiate golf, that athletes can now benefit from that. Can you share a little about that and your own thoughts around it?
Sure. Name, image, and likeness is something that the NCAA was vehemently against, like that student athletes couldn't earn any money based on their name, image, or likeness. Well, that was basically against antitrust rules of, U.S. rules. And so that's why a lot of things have changed, is all because of the lawsuits that have happened. And schools are paying out the nose, and the NCAA is getting sued left or right because the laws just really weren't very solid from the NCAA standpoint. And so now we have this open market of name, image, and likeness. And so for international students, the laws are that, like Zara, for example, she can have an Indian company, she can represent an Indian company, and she can get paid, and she has to be paid in India. When she comes to the U.S., she can't get paid by a U.S. company, but she can, like I said, she can be paid in her own country or do appearances anywhere outside of the U.S. And so that's something that, parents or companies might be interested in really supporting. It's a great way to support a young lady because golf is an expensive sport. And, I look at NIL, like this is a way that you can support your journey, like going to the LPGA qualifying school. That's $8,000, and all the travel and all the different things that go along with it. Playing in other tournaments, honing your skills, being competitive. And so if it were me as a college golfer, like I didn't go out and solicit sponsorships or people to help me out until I was turning pro, where I think now someone can package it that, will you help support me on my journey to becoming a pro? And so, you can do company days and play golf with customers and things like that. I mean, I would probably go out and probably try to solicit from maybe companies, families that my parents know, has helped support me in following my dream, because it's a lot more fun to support someone that's going to talk to you and you can interact and things like that. So to me, it's like, I don't think that unless you're like a very top player, those companies will come to you. But if you are a thriving player and have a lot to offer, have a great personality, and you're, love being around people and conversation is easy, you love to ask questions, you're curious about other people, like those are talents and personality traits that you can really market. And if you're quite shy and scared of your own shadow, then a company's probably not going to take you on. So I think that based on personality and just stepping out and going asking for sponsorship, I don't think is a bad thing.
Yeah. That's very, very helpful context. Though, like you said, for international players, I think it's restricted in the sense that it can only be from limited to their own geography. Right. I was actually keen to ask questions about junior golf in terms of, what are the fundamentals that matter most in early years? If you could just give a little sense of what should they be focusing. So basically between 11 years to 15 years, around that time, what is it that kids should be focusing on?
Fundamentals, the grip, setup, posture. I mean, it just amazes me that some of the grips that I see out there of players that are just very non-traditional. Now, those kids find a way to make it work, but I think that good instruction, you got to put your hands on the club in a consistent manner. And I think that it's not very sexy, it's not very fun, but I mean, it's one of the fundamentals of the game that will set you up. So when you're older and you're not fighting that bad grip and always having, like making compensations. So I think that, as high level college players, professional golfers always go back to fundamentals when things aren't going well. But I do think that some good instruction, but also finding a coach that will take you on the golf course and teach you how to play the game. Because if you think about it, most instructors will make their money by giving lessons and not leaving the lesson tee. Most don't focus on short game. And so if you can find someone that will go on the golf course with you and teach you how to play the game, because what we've come into is like the laser, the point and click. How far and what club, and not really taking into account all the different nuances of the game with, the elevation, the temperature, the humidity, the lie, the slope of the, left foot low, ball below your feet, all the different things. really learning to play the game and how to strategize and when to go for pins and when not to, and hitting it low, hitting it high. I mean, just really playing the game. I don't think that there's a lot of time spent on the golf course. And when I hear someone says, well, my coach has never been on the golf course with me, I'm like, what? It's shocking to me. Learned so much I learned from my mom. I was on the golf course with her a lot. And I think that's one of the things that helped me understand the game. My swing coach, we would go out and play a lot. And, once you get out there, you can't be thinking golf swing anyway. So, how to transition from the driving range to the golf course they're two totally different games. And so if you're only getting instruction on a flat surface in a controlled environment, then you're not learning how to play the game.
Unfortunately, I think, the ecosystem is somehow broken. Even in India, we find that for whatever limitations, it's not always holistic. Support is not available always on, these aspects of game that you spoke about, course management. So, I'm hoping that in the coming years, there's more structure and more support is built for our young players in these aspects. Just one final question on use of technology. I mean, now we're seeing very young kids also, they have their own GC quads, swing analyzers, all kind of, data-driven practice. What's your perspective on balancing between natural talent, feel, and fundamentals versus kind of using technology? And how early should technology come in? I mean, we see like 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds, and how should parents think about it without, letting go of instinct and creativity?
I think it's, again, it comes back to balance. I think that, when we first got TrackMan, I didn't really know how to use it, didn't really know what the numbers meant, and had to learn along the way. Well, these kids come in understanding their tendencies better because of TrackMan or GC Quad. I think you need to know that you can really only get true numbers when you hit the ball in the middle of the club face. And so discriminating between those two. So, how solid is a 6-year-old hitting it? I have never seen a 6-year-old on a GC Quad. So that's different for me. But I think that, progressing, love using it for wedge work, getting feedback. How far is that ball going? But the kids can come in and with path and club face, they know what their tendencies are. And so they can work on it with feedback. I think that part of it's great. Again, you're not going to have a GC Quad or TrackMan on the golf course. If you learn to maybe hit off of uneven lies with the GC Quad and understanding what your tendencies are off those lies and why, I think that can be interesting study. So again, hitting from a flat surface and using a TrackMan or GC Quad, that's one thing. What is that, that ball sitting down in the rough or a pill lie? Well, how much does that lie affect your yardage? And what does your path do? And, just so many different things. It's just curiosity. I think you can use technology in a really fun way. And I think it's great feedback. I think you should always know when, how far are you hitting it? So there's no guessing. But again, it's just a mix of the two, and it's a balance.
Right. Thank you, Coach Melissa. I think I'm just getting greedy. Just one final one, because this was out of my own personal curiosity. I'm going to ask it. For a young person, let's say someone who's 15 years, who's struggling, the results are not coming for them. Let's say their confidence is low and they're really questioning whether they have it in them to keep going. Or what would you say to such a person to help for them to think clearly that have they reached, is this just a crossroad, or is this a rough patch? Is this a crossroad? What is the kind of mindset that can help them think through what they're experiencing?
Well, I think if you've had some good experiences on the golf course, and it goes back to why do you play? And if you love the challenge of the game, which you better love the challenge of the game, and figuring things out, I think is just such a neat thing. Even though it's so difficult, you go through heartache and I'm putting so much time in. How come I'm not getting my results? It's not instant gratification. Everything else in our world is instant gratification. I'm talking about social media, instant gratification. Well, golf is not. And so when I've got a player that's struggling maybe with their swing or whatever, I just put them on wedges and short game and putting for a period of time and don't let them hit any full shots. Those things will help take the pressure off the full swing. And so if they get proficient in those areas, then all of a sudden they don't feel the pressure in the full swing to hit it perfect. And so, yes, it's a hard game. It's going to kick you in the butt. It's going to slap you in the face. And, you're like, why do I play? And sometimes you may not want to play, or you might need to take a break and get away from it and see if you miss it. But it's something that really, it's a gut check, and it just, it's just understanding the journey of the game, I think, is really important. And understanding the big picture, like in the short term, this is painful, but in the big picture, like these are the challenges. Like we want success to just go a straight line up, and it's very curvy. It's got its highs and its lows, and you have to really understand that going into it. I think as a parent, really helping them understand that the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows, like these are things you can expect. But if you have persistence and have the right, with the right skill and the right mindset, that you understand, like Anna Davis is a great player on our team and a former Augusta National Women's Amateur champion. And there's no one that I've ever coached that understands the highs and the lows. And she doesn't panic. She doesn't like it. She's had some lows, and she just understands that that's the nature of the game. And so I think that's such a maturity that I really rarely see, but it's something that is inevitable in this game.
Lovely. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Coach Melissa, for all your time, for generously sharing your insights. I'm really hopeful that we're going to see more talent from India, making it both at collegiate golf and at pro level. And thanks so much for all that you've shared. And that
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amita.